Good morning. We're going to bring this joint meeting of Senate Finance and Assembly Committee Ways and Means to order. And we will start by calling the roll, please.
Assemblywoman Benitez-Thompson. Assemblyman Frierson. Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Here.
Assemblyman Hafen. Here. Assemblywoman Howdigi. Here. Assemblyman Levitt.
Here.
Assemblywoman Miller. Here. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Here. Assemblywoman Peters. Here. Assemblyman Roberts. Here. Assemblywoman Titus. Here. Assemblywoman Tolles. Here. Assemblyman Watts. Here. Senator Cannizzaro. Here. Senator Dennis. Here. Senator Dondero Loop. Here. Senator Goycochea. Here. Senator Hammond. Here. Senator Kekeffer. Here. Senator Ratty. Here. Senator Severs-Ganzert. Here. Assemblywoman Carlton. Here. Chair Brooks.
Here, and I just want to welcome all the members and the public and everyone who's participating today, and remind the public that we have public comment at the end of this meeting this morning. And if you go to our agenda, there is the way that you can sign on to public comment or call in, and we have a few people in the room with us today, and we will be taking their public comment at the end and then go to the phones. Today we have a few items, and we had to revise the agenda early this morning, and we had to pull off the K-12 funding closing. We just need a few more days of time. This is something as important as that with the session that we're having this session needs to get it right. And we had just a few hiccups, and we want to make sure that we get everything just right before we address that budget. And so we pulled it, and we'll be hearing it a few days from now. And so keep an eye on the agenda, and I'm sure everybody will be notified when we're ready. But that we have budget closings of the statewide decision units that we'll start out with. And that is decisions based upon funding for position restorations. And if you recall, we made some decisions earlier in session, and this is a modification of those decisions. And Mr. Thorley will be here to walk us through those. And staff is handing out that information to you right now. And so we can take a look at that. It's got some attachments associated with it. There are some spreadsheets that I'll be looking at on my computer because my eyes don't, yeah, I'll take it, thank you. My eyes don't work on these little pieces of paper.
So this is the position restoration?
We'll give everyone a few minutes to take a look at that, and then we'll have Mr. Thorley walk us through that. All right, I think everybody has their documents in front of them and taking a look at them. And Mr. Thorley, if you could get started and walk us through that, I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone, and happy Saturday. Wayne Thorley for the record, LCB Fiscal. This is the third meeting the Joint Full Committee has had on funding for position restorations. I will briefly summarize the previous actions from the prior two meetings, and then go into the two items that are before the committees for consideration today. On April 1st, that was the first meeting on funding for position restorations. The Money Committee's preliminary granted authority preliminarily granted for approval the elimination of general funds and federal funds for certain positions that were recommended to be held vacant or eliminated in the governor's recommended budget, and also at the same time preliminarily granted authority to use American Rescue Act or American Rescue Plan funds to fund those positions in the upcoming biennium beginning October 1st of 2021. After that, we came back on May 3rd and presented some updates based off the work that the subcommittees had done and some information that we had received from the governor's finance office, and provided some updates. Those updates are described in the 3 bullet points on the bottom of page 1 of your document, and then the bullet point on the top of page 2 of your document. What those updates did is it removed the number of FTE that funding would be restored to by 3 or by 2, and then also changed some of the general fund reductions for the eliminations, just some technical changes. Also 3 positions from the Environmental Health Services budget for the Department of Public and Behavioral Health were added to the list. So on page 2 begins the write-up of the 2 items that are before the committees for consideration today. The preliminary guidance that we have received from the U.S. Department of Treasury earlier this week indicates that an eligible use of the American Rescue Plan coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds does include payroll and other position costs associated with rehiring public sector staff up to the pre-pandemic staffing levels. So this guidance is consistent with the actions that have previously been taken by the money committees on this issue. In an effort to assist state agencies in managing their workload related to the restored positions, the money committees may wish to consider authorizing the restoration of funding for positions with the ARP funds beginning July 1st of 2021, so beginning at the very beginning of fiscal year 22, which is 3 months earlier than the previously approved funding start date of October 1st, 2021. This would increase authority of funding, and there's 2 errors in your document here, so I want to make sure everyone gets the updated numbers. And we are updating the document, and we'll post the document with the correct numbers online. So by changing the funding restoration date to July 1, this would increase authority of funding by $5.1 million. So it's not the $4.9 million, it's 200,000 more. So $5.1 million in FY22. And then this increases the total amount from $4.6 million to $19.7 million. So there's another correction that will be made. It's 19.7, not 19.5. So that's the first item that the committees may wish to consider today is, again, changing the funding restoration date from October 1st to July 1st. And then that would increase the amount of American Rescue Plan Act funding going to the restoration of positions by $5.1 million. The second item the money committees may wish to consider approving is the authorization of ARP coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds beginning July 1, 2021 to restore funding for position reductions approved by the money committees for the Nevada system of higher education that were associated with a hiring freeze of positions across the system and the various institutions. The system has provided supplemental information to fiscal staff regarding the budgetary reduction measures and estimated the number of positions that may go unfilled as a result of the budgetary reduction measures. While the estimated number of positions total 487 full-time equivalent positions, the actual number of positions to be restored by the Board of Regents may differ from the figure given the estimated nature of the number. and the fact that estimates were not provided for each individual budget account. The total dollar amount associated with this action, if the committees wish to approve providing American Rescue Plan Act funding for the NSHE positions, is $46.6 million in FY22 and $46.5 million in FY23. If both actions are approved, the total authorization of ARP, coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds for the purpose of position restorations would be, and again, there's two small errors here, it would be $66.3 million in FY22 and $51.4 million in FY23. These numbers are reflected in the spreadsheets that are attached to the document. The numbers in the spreadsheet are correct. So it's just those four numbers on this document, on the narrative. I'll briefly walk the committees through the spreadsheet, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions the committee might have. The first page of the spreadsheet of attachment A, it's page 4 of your printout or of the PDF, is a one-page summary of both the governor's recommended budget reductions related to eliminating positions or holding positions vacant. Those are columns A through F. So that's the reductions recommended by the governor. Column G has the number of FTE positions for which funding would be restored. Again, this includes the 487 FTE that are estimated for the Nevada system of higher education. I will note that this includes the 7 formula instructional institutions, the 4 professional schools, but does not include FTE figures for DRI or the non-formula budgets. Columns J and K represent the actual dollar amount of American Rescue Plan Act, coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds that would be authorized for the funding of these positions. If you go all the way down to the bottom of the summary page, the grand total line, you'll see again that it's $66.3 million in year 1 and then $51.4 million in year 2 for a total of $117.8 million over the biennium of federal funding for these positions. The next 2 pages of the attachment A, pages 5 and 6, is a detailed breakout of the summary page. So it actually includes the individual decision units by budget account for which the decision units that recommended the position eliminations or the holding the positions vacant, and then the actual dollar amount associated with restoring funding for those positions. So it just rolls up to page 4, which is a summary page. On page 3 of the narrative is a motion that two motions that the subcommittee may want to consider. Or I'm sorry, we're not in subcommittee anymore. The joint full committee. In addition to the previous actions taken by the money committees regarding the restoration of position funding with American Rescue Plan, coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds beginning October 1, 2021, do the committees wish to authorize additional funding of $5.1 million in FY22, bringing total authority in FY22 to $19.7 million for position restorations previously approved by the committee, thereby allowing state agencies to begin hiring and filling the positions beginning July 1, 2021? And do the committees wish to approve the restoration of funding for positions through the Nevada System of Higher Education budgets beginning July 2021 with American Rescue Plan, coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds authorizations of $46.6 million in FY22 and $46.5 million in FY23? And fiscal staff would seek authority to make technical adjustments as necessary if the motion is approved. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and happy to answer any questions committee members might have.
Thank you, Mr. Thorley. And I do have a few questions I want to start off with. And first of all, thank you for doing all this hard work and the fiscal staff and in the Assembly and in the Senate and for the entire LCB. This is important stuff, and it's weighed heavily, I think, on a lot of us. And you guys have put in a lot of late hours trying to get us to a place where we can do these things for Nevadans. And so I just want to thank, on this Saturday morning, thank you for all the late nights, including last night, to do what we're doing here. But I have a question. And so in the NSHE FTEs, we have, I have to go, we have 487 NSHE FTEs that would be restored through this action. But that does not include DRI, and if I go to the sheets, and I'm looking at attachment A, if I go to the education portion of attachment A, and we start at budget account 3010, and then move down from there, all those other budget accounts, we don't have any identified FTEs associated with those. Do we have the information on those FTEs? Do we just not have the information on them, or are they treated separately because they're outside of the formula? Or could you just clarify that for me a little bit?
I'm going to need to phone a friend.
Well, you picked a good friend to phone, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Brody Leiser. These decision units, as submitted, did not include FTEs identified by the system by budget account, which is consistent with other decision units submitted by the system of higher education. However, there was funding identified by budget account associated with hiring freezes. So the system did provide supplemental information to staff on these particular decision units, and that information included the FTEs that you see on the sheet on page 5, but for a number of the budgets, the information did not identify specific FTE counts for those budgets. But it is the understanding of staff that the reductions are associated with a hiring freeze. And so when the Board of Regents were to approve the final budgets, the expectations would be that this funding, would be specifically used for the purpose to restore or hire positions that would have otherwise went unfilled as a result of the budget reductions. And so while there are no FTEs reflected on your sheets for those budget accounts, as you can see, each of the non-formula budgets, there is an associated amount of restoration specifically identified for those budgets. So the action, if approved by the committees, would indeed restore funding for, I believe, just about every budget, if not every budget that has or supports positions at NSHE. We just don't have an exact number of the FTE that would actually be restored.
Thank you, Mr. Leiser. That answers my question. And the decision that we're making here today is a decision for restoration for funding of positions. And so we just want to make it crystal clear that, we have within the NSHE budget, based on the information given us, identified 487 positions, but in reality, it's more positions than that. And we're assigning a dollar amount to these other decision units and budget accounts from, that were outside the formula, but that this is solely for positions and the restoration of those positions. And so makes it kind of hard when we don't have all the information in front of us, and that's kind of a consistent theme. But we want to make sure that, and that's no criticism by any means of fiscal staff. We didn't get the information. So, but we do have I appreciate how we've backed into that number and but we have definitely identified this for restoration of positions. And I don't know how we can be more clear about that, or how we can make sure that we hold the institutions accountable to those positions associated with this money. And so that was just something I wanted to get on the record and something I wanted to clarify. And thank you for walking me through how this works, those accounts work. I think, Chair Carlton, I think you had a comment as well?
And thank you, I do, and Mr. Chairman, we typically don't bring people up, but I'm going to bump somebody from the testimony table, and we're not going to play phone a friend, we're going to say it's time to show up. Mr. Klinger, come on down. The price is right. Here you go.
Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, can I just add one thing to my
yes.
testimony
Yes,
before
Mr. Leiser.
before Mr. Klinger gets to the table? I do want to let the committee know that we did go through these specific decision units that you see on your sheets to ensure that these amounts are associated with the Category 1 reductions that were in these decision units, which tie to personnel. So even though that they do not have specific FTEs identified, these are the amounts in the executive budget as submitted associated with the personnel expenditure category. So I didn't make that clear earlier and want to make sure that's part of the record.
Thank you very much. And that's an important piece of the record. So thank you for clarifying that.
And thank you, Mr. Leiser, that was going to be one of the conversation points, so I appreciate you bringing it up. Mr. Klinger, come on down. You know, the other day when we were having conversations, the speaker and I were basically saying to those in the room and those listening that it's not over till it's over. So we were trying to get where we needed to be. We needed to have information and guidance. We needed to be able to allow staff to get their work done. So I just wanted to make sure that folks understand that, you know, as we move through this process, it's an ever-changing world because we don't know what's on the other side of the curtain right now. So Mr. Klinger, you've heard all the explanations. Just like to have you get on the record that you understand where we're aiming. We know full well that when we give the system money, that you guys you have flexibility. And that's good because you do have your own system. But you've also heard that this is for Cat 1 and that, you know, we really do want to see the jobs come back. We think that's the most important thing at this moment in time. So I'd just like you to put a couple things on the record for us to make everybody up here comfortable with that conversation point, please.
Thank you. For the record, Andrew Klinger, Chief Financial Officer for Nevada System of Higher Education, through you, Chair Brooks, to Assemblywoman Carlton. First, just want to say, you know, thank you to the committee as well as your staff, because I do recognize I've been in their shoes and I understand how challenging this is, and I understand that it is a process. So appreciate their efforts and appreciate your efforts. And to the chair's comments about not identifying the FTE, in the cases of the ones that are listed without FTE, it was simply we knew we were going to have to hold positions vacant. We just couldn't at the time identify which ones. It would have been sort of a rolling process as positions became vacant. So just want to make sure it wasn't in any attempt to not be transparent. It was just we didn't know exactly. But certainly understand and I'm happy to make sure that we as a system, as we implement these funds, that it goes specifically for position restorations and does not, what I'm hearing from the committee, does not get moved to any other spending category, so that it will only be used to restore positions, and we are in agreement with that.
Thank you, Mr. Klinger. I think that's exactly, I think, what the committee wanted to hear and what we're really trying to achieve with this decision. So do you have any further questions for Mr. Klinger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Klinger. You know, at this moment in time, I mean, jobs have always been the thing in this building, and especially with me, it's like if we can give somebody a good paying job moving forward, then we've actually helped a family succeed. So that's what it's all about in this building. So we just wanted to make sure that as we move forward, that that's where we really are. And now at this moment in time, we can make this decision. 48 hours ago or so, we couldn't make this decision because we weren't there yet. So I just wanted to make sure that that was on the record.
I think I jinxed us earlier in the session when I said I wonder what curveballs will be thrown at us later, and we keep getting them. So appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mr. Klinger, and thank you. I know that your entire staff has been working very hard too to try to just figure it out in these trying times. I do have Senator Kekeffer who has a question while we have you, and then we have Senator Ratty as well. While we have you, we opened up the box, Chair Carlton.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity for this discussion today. I just wanted to note that for the E680 decision unit that's being restored, is that all inclusive? I know that the UNR, for example, was the one institution that was proposing position eliminations and not just a temporary hiring freeze. Are those position eliminations encapsulated in the E680?
Mr. Chair, for the record, Andrew Klinger to Senator Kekeffer. I apologize, Senator. I do not know the answer to that question on the E680s. I would have to double check.
I pulled up in GovRec, it says it relates to, exactly what it says on the sheet, right? Implements a temporary hiring freeze for administrative and academic faculty in classified positions. So I just wanted to make sure that that decision unit was all encompassing of the personnel issues.
Senator Kekeffer, we might be able to get Mr. Thorley and Mr. Leiser to answer that one, but while we still have, oh yeah, we can do that. But hang on for just a second, Mr. Klinger, but Mr. Leiser, if you might be able to answer that question for Senator Kekeffer.
For the record, Brody Leiser, Fiscal Analysis Division. The answer is yes.
Thank you, Mr. Leiser. Thank you, Senator Kekeffer. Senator Ratty?
Thank you. I was just interested in the practical implications. And so would it be your impression, I know we're not to closing yet, but would it be your impression, or sorry, sine die yet, that the practical implication of this would be that the hiring freeze would be lifted sooner rather than later so that staffing could be put in place for the upcoming school year, really? The students are coming pretty soon. So that's my question. Is it enough time to make decisions that will impact the upcoming academic year?
For the record, Andrew Klinger, Chief Financial Officer, through Chair Brooks. I believe so. We've been following the guidance of the governor's office on the hiring freeze, and so as these decisions are finalized, I think this will send a signal to the institutions that they can begin that process.
Thank you, Senator Ratty. Do we have any other questions okay, for Mr. Klinger or for our fiscal staff? All right. Thank you, Mr. Klinger. Well, I see no more questions, so I'm ready for a motion, I believe.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be very happy to make this motion regarding the restoration. I would move to the restoration of position funding with American Rescue Plan Coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, moving it from October 1st, having the committee move that to July the 1st, authorizing additional funding of $5.1 million in 2022, bringing total authority in fiscal year 2022 to $19.7 million for position restorations previously approved by the committee, thereby allowing state agencies to begin hiring July 1st of 2021, and to approve the restoration of funding for positions throughout the Nevada system of higher education budgets beginning July 2021 with American Rescue Plan Coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds and authorizations of $46.6 million in fiscal year 2022 and $46.5 million in fiscal year 2023, and of course, allowing staff to make all those technical adjustments that they need.
Second.
I have a motion from Chair Carlton. I have a second from Senator Dennis. Do I have any discussion on the motion? Senator Sievers-Gansert?
Thank you, Chair Brooks. I want to thank staff for going through the numbers, and I appreciate the committee voting on this issue so that we can treat the system of higher education like we've treated other budgets. And I think they're really important dollars to be spent because we do have so many students and citizens who benefit from higher education, whether it's workforce development or whether it's four-year degrees or PhDs. And so this is truly important money, so thank you. I'll be supporting the motion.
Do I have any other, Assemblywoman Tolles?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And as you know, this has a huge impact, not just on those positions, not just on those jobs, but on those students. And I'm truly grateful that we were able to take this action today, and I will be supporting.
Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Chair Carlton?
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, there's a moment in time for everything that we do, and this is a process. So I just hope everyone will be patient with the process and patient with us trying to get through all this and not jump to conclusions on where this body is headed.
Thank you, Chair Carlton. Any other discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, aye. Aye. Assemblyman Levitt and Assemblywoman Gorlow raised their hand in indication of aye. All opposed, nay. And the motion passes unanimously. And thank you very much. Thank you, committee and specific in the education subcommittee that looked at these budgets and really worked through them. I would like to thank the chairs and the members of that subcommittee too. And that is our business for the day. And the last item we have is public comment. And oh, we have other statewide decision units. I'm so sorry. I got a little excited by being able to. Oh, we don't. Oh, okay. That was the only statewide. Okay, thank you. So.
That's the only part of statewide we had to do? Okay. Sorry, I apologize.
No problem. No problem. No problem. See, I was excited. Chair Carlton wanted to go to work. So we can move to public comment. So who come on up if you're in the room, and then we'll make our way to the phones.
Everyone was so excited at first, and then they all sat back down. Hello, and thank you, Committee Chair Brooks and Committee Chairwoman Carlton. For the record, my name is Hava Ahmed, Hawahahmad, and I'm here representing CCEA, the Clark County Education Association. CCEA represents over 18,000 licensed educators and is the largest independent teachers association in the country. We engage in bipartisan advocacy to advance the public education in Nevada. Although the K-12 budget will not be before this joint committee today, we wanted to remind you of the importance of the decision that you will have to make this week on the People-Centered Funding Plan. As we transition to the PCFP, CCEA encourages everyone on this body to review the Commission on School Funding's April 23, 2021 report that suggests restoration with one of the 4 plans to gradually increase revenue to put our students first and fund education in Nevada. CCEA understands that the ARP money that we're receiving and the current funds alone are not enough and that we must pass new revenue. However, to pass new revenue, we know that it has to be a bipartisan effort led by the governor, and we are cautiously optimistic that this can occur this session. Most importantly, we also believe that the ARP funds can be utilized to invest in the hardest hit communities by this pandemic, specifically our EL and at-risk students. However, again, ARP funding into the weights is not going to be enough, and we do need that new revenue that will be able to support our K-12 education system. This can happen this session, but we also need your help. Please join us in helping to support our educators, but most importantly, supporting our students. CCEA stands ready to work with the legislature, the governor, gaming, and mining to find a solution. Lastly, we would like to thank you all for your hard work on this committee and your work on the people-centered funding plan. We eagerly await supporting the upcoming K-12 budget closing later this week. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Brooks and Chair Carlton and committee members. I came to Carson on Saturday morning, so I figured I may as well say something while I'm here. And it gives me the opportunity to speak to the priorities of the Washoe County School District as it relates to K-12 funding and the pupil-centered funding plan before you take action later this week. The Washoe County School District is asking that this committee restore the proposed cuts to class size reduction funds as well as the Read by 3 program, a sentiment shared by all 17 superintendents through the Nevada Association of School Superintendents. And we want to ensure that if these cuts are restored, they are specifically used to increase the base per pupil funds. I wish that as the Nevada plan was rebranded, we had come up with a better name for base funding. I think there's potentially a negative connotation associated with these funds. But as the subcommittee heard from staff, we have a unique opportunity to set the base amount as close to adequate and optimal as possible to start this funding formula off on the right foot for every single public school student. We know that as it currently sits, the base per pupil is significantly below the $9,238 figure that APA recommends as full adequacy. Base funding should be prioritized until this time. And we would expect that the base per pupil amount to grow proportionally as outlined in NRS 387.1214 subsection 5C. We know that base funds are the livelihood of our schools. This is the pot of funds that goes to determine how many teachers we can hire and thus determining the determining factor in class size. We use these funds to hire school-based mental health professionals, which would help us address the overwhelming caseload these people are currently handling. And we will use these funds to comply with early literacy efforts like Read by 3, dual credit, teacher incentives, and I could go on and on. And by funding the base per pupil amount at a higher level, we are by definition increasing the weighted funding since it's designed to be a percentage of base funding. Any new funds put into K-12 should be used exclusively to increase the base per pupil funds. Additionally, we do not support the idea of the hold harmless done on a per pupil basis. It has not been analyzed by the Commission on School Funding or districts, and we believe it is a very substantial negative change to the Washoe County School District. We know putting this K-12 budget together is a massive undertaking, and we continue to stand ready to offer extensive expertise from our district staff as the recipients of these funds. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Could you put your name on the record for us?
Oh, what a rookie mistake. Of course, I apologize. I'm Lindsay Anderson, LINDSAYANDERSON, on behalf of the Washoe County School District. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Brooks, Chair Carlton, members of the Senate Finance and Assembly, Ways and Means, Brad Keating, representing the Clark County School District. I want to take this moment to thank each of you for taking the time and a few extra days in making sure that the education budget closes correctly. This is the most important education decision in over 50 years that will be made. The Nevada plan, while good intentioned, has not served the majority of students in this state for a very long time. This new model is not about North against South. It's not against rural against urban. It's about students. What do students need to be successful? Ms. Anderson did a great job this morning walking through a number of the concerns that we all have. I trust that this body will review each of these so that we can address them and ensure every weight and aspect of this formula meets the needs of our state school districts. We sincerely urge this body and the legislature to consider the recommendations on the Commission on School Funding, who have been working on this historic formula for over 18 months. This will help ensure that the final outcome provides equity and adequacy for all students in the state of Nevada. With that, I just wanted to provide you some context. While I sit here representing the Clark County School District and am proud to do so, it's much more than that. I'm representing 310,000 students and 42,000 employees who work tirelessly every single day. For that, we're grateful to each and every one of our employees who continue to do more with less every day. As you make this decision in the coming days, know that your decision will affect hundreds of thousands of students in Southern Nevada, 273,000 students on free and reduced lunch, 40,000 students with disabilities, 50,000 English language learners, 1,700 students in the foster care system, and nearly 10,000 students who are homeless. These students are counting on each of you. Sure, we can discuss CCSD at length and the good and bad that comes with the district or any other district across the country. What we cannot debate is that these students need the support and resources necessary to have every chance to be successful. As you move forward in this process, I respectfully ask you to remember each of these students, these 310,000 students that have been harmed for decades due to a broken funding model. Please do not continue to disadvantage students who have already been disadvantaged for so long. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity, and CCSD looks forward to continuing our collaboration with each of you to benefit all students across the state. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dawn Echeverry, DAWN ETCHEVERRY. I have been teaching music in Washoe County School District for 27 years, and I am currently serving as the Vice President of the Nevada State Education Association. Since last summer's special session, educators from across the state have turned up at rallies and in public comment asking legislators to listen to educators. Today is no different. Currently, the cuts being considered to education are $156 million in class size reduction and resulting in the loss of 1,000 teachers across our state, and $33 million in Read by 3 literacy program. I have listened to hearings regarding the loss of learning during the pandemic. These cuts will make it extremely difficult to help children in Nevada catch up. Listen to educators and restore the money to the proposed cuts. While restoration to these programs is possible for this biennium, the state must find new funding sources that is dedicated to education. It is time to put AJR 1 up for a public hearing. AJR 1, passed in the 32nd special session, would generate $485 million in new revenue annually. Again, listen to educators. We are better than 48th in the nation. Send AJR 1 to the ballot and let Nevada's voters decide. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Selena LaRue Hatch, LA_RUE_HATCH. I'm a Washoe County teacher and a member of WEA and NSEA, and I came to speak to the K-12 budget, and I was disappointed to see it changed, but I'm very, very happy to hear it was removed so that you can take time to consider these very, very important issues. And I am urging you to please restore the cuts to class size reduction and Read by 3. I want to share a little bit about my classroom in Washoe County. This year, we've been on hybrid, and I see my students every other day, which means that I have about 10 to 15 students in the room each day. And that 10 to 15 has been incredible because I've gotten to speak to each one-on-one every day in every other day in every class period and give them the attention they need. But next year, I will have 40 in every single class period. I will have 6 minutes per student per week to talk to them. That's an insane amount for a teacher to have with a student. And I will not have enough desks for my students. I have to hope that kids will be absent so that they don't sit on the floor. And for a teacher to hope that students are absent, there's something wrong with that system. And so I'm begging you to please invest in that and not only restore the cuts, but invest in Nevada education. 48th is not good enough. We are better than this, and our kids are better than this. And I hope that you can find new revenue to get us there. The Funding Commission has asked you to invest $200 million a year to get us to average, not even the full optimal funding. And I think AJR 1 is the first step in doing that. And I hope that you will support it. I hope that you will bring it to the Nevada voters so that we can have a say. It will not fix all of education, but as I tell my students all the time, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. This is the first bite, and I'm asking you to take it. Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have any public comment on the telephone?
Thank you, Chair Brooks. We are currently on public comment. If you have joined the call and would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits, 540. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, my name is Kalen Evans. That's Calenevans, and I'm an educator in Washoe County. I'm also the president of Empower Nevada Teachers, a nonprofit organization comprised of educators, community members, and business leaders whose focus is on fixing our broken education system here in Nevada. I appreciate your time today. I'm calling in to urge this committee to restore the money that is being proposed to be taken out of class size reduction and early literacy specialists. As you guys all should know, Nevada has the largest class sizes in the entire country. Class size is not only a detriment to student learning outcomes, but also a working condition that is extremely detrimental to educators. Nevada has one of the highest teacher turnover rates in the entire country as well. The School Funding Commission had suggested that we increase educational funding by $2 billion annually, and we are looking at making cuts that will further impact all of our students and school district employees. If we are going to start actually addressing the educational system in Nevada, we have to start now. We cannot simply cut our way out of this mess. We need to invest in public education. This is going to take some time, and we need to start right now with this. I do want to speak directly to my fellow Democrats. I am a Democrat. I've only voted for Democrats my entire voting career, I guess you could say. I do want to let you guys know that especially in terms of educators and their families, that you are alienating your base. Educators and their families voted for you. They have campaigned for you. They have made phone calls and stuffed envelopes for you. And your lackluster overall support of education is not going unnoticed by Democratic voters. We need both Democrats and Republicans here in Nevada to actually support our education system and not simply use it as a campaign promise to get elected, because there are neither party that is truly supporting education. And it's quite obvious when we are 48th in the nation in per pupil funding, and we have one of the lowest funded and under-resourced education systems in the entire country. So none of you can sit up here with a straight face and tell me that either party is adequately supporting our education system. So voters are watching, and we are watching very closely. Educators are watching, and their families are watching very closely. And we need lawmakers to do what they're supposed to do and support our education system. Thank you.
Next caller, please.
Thank you, Chair. Caller with the last three digits, 577. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Chris Bailey, DALY, Nevada State Education Association. This morning, sticking with the theme of listening to educators, I'd like to read a couple of comments from classroom educators. ESEA member Erica Youngare is a special education paraprofessional in Clark County. She writes, "What is unique about my position is not only do I have the pleasure of working with wonderful students in the special education department, I assist students when they're placed in a general education classroom setting. It's difficult to express the dire urgency. Our classrooms are so overcrowded, they become standing room only, making instructional time nearly impossible and unfair to our students. I work with teachers that walk in classrooms on their first day with no curriculum. I've waited for my students on many occasions before and after school over an hour to receive transportation. Funding affects every sector of education down to the basic fundamentals of having a pencil or paper for our students, which surprisingly, even those items are scarce in our district. My school site alone this year will lose several fantastic teachers to different states or another profession. The staffing losses include phenomenal support professionals to help run our schools. I urge you to please fund our schools and not only make Nevada #1 in tourism, but #1 in education." Dallas Holsey is a science teacher in Reno. She writes, "As an educator heavily involved in education activism the last few years, I find myself continually disappointed by the lack of funding for public education in our great state. This consistent lack of funds has made it clear Nevada has an objectively failing education system with the largest class sizes in the nation. When I taught at a Vegas middle school back in 2013, my largest class size as a brand new educator with 38 eighth graders. From 2014 to 2015, my largest was 40. Other teachers in my school had similar and even larger class sizes. To say that teaching under such circumstances is overwhelming is an understatement. To say that class size issue will be the death of my teaching career is entirely accurate. And I can tell you from countless conversations that I am not the only educator feeling this strain. Please do not cut funds dedicated to class size reduction. Do not cut educator jobs when we all know it's the last thing our state needs. Instead, please do the opposite and hire the 3,000 educators we need to make public education in Nevada more equitable for all. Thank you very much.
We are
Next
currently
caller,
on
please.
public comment. Thank you, Chair. Sorry. If you have joined the call and would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no more call. Oh, I lied. One moment, please. Caller with the last 3 digits, 892. Please press *6 to unmute. Thank you, caller. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good morning. My name is Ruben Murillo, Ruben Murillo. For the record, again, my name is Ruben Murillo. I'm a retired special education teacher, former president of the Nevada State Education Association and the Clark County Education Association. I'm here to advocate at a minimum for keeping education funding for classroom size reduction at $156 million and early literacy supports for $33 million. I'm hoping that these proposed cuts to the classroom size reduction and early literacy supports in the K-12 budget came before the Economic Forum May report and the allocation of stimulus funds from the federal government. Restore these cuts by using these forecasts and stimulus funds and even increase funding for these 2 critical programs. You have an obligation to fully fund other programs that will make our students successful. To better demonstrate your commitment by restoring and even increasing funding to these critical programs. You just restored the FTEs and an earlier action today, showing your commitment to higher ed. We want you to show your commitment to public education by making sure that our students have all the tools necessary to be successful. Thank you.
Once again, we are currently on public comment. If you have joined the call and would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no additional callers wishing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That is the last agenda item and the last business we have for today. So we will let our very busy fiscal staff get back to what they were doing. They have a busy weekend ahead of them, so we will not bug you. And we'll let you do what you need to do to close things up on this really busy weekend. Chair Carlton?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Assembly Ways and Means on Monday is posted as call of the chair. I will let folks know as we get closer what the plan will be, but this is the time of year when we have to stay flexible. So thank you all very much.
And with that, we are adjourned.